Hi, I'm Nathan Bolt, artist here at Emergent, and in this video we're going to cover how to convert a Maya material over to use Gamebryo standard material. So if you see, I've already got my character loaded up in Maya. I'm rendering this using the high quality renderer. By the way, this character, Striker, he's based on the War Machine universe, which is created and owned by Privateer Press. So let's go ahead and take a look at the material I've got. We'll just go through this real quick. You can see as I zoom in here that we've got a specular color map. Let me actually select this so it shows up. We've got a specular color map. I'm taking the alpha from this texture and I'm using it to drive the cosine power, which is just your specular power texture. I've got a normal map, I have a glow map, and if you look here you can see that I'm applying this to a unique set of UVs. It's because the only part of the character that's actually glowing are these little tiny vents back here in the boiler. So we'll go ahead and cover how to apply texture to a unique set of UVs. As we keep going down, I've got my cube map, and you can see that I'm bringing in several different textures to build that with the cube map generator. I've got a base map, and then I also have a reflectivity mask, just a black and white map to control which parts of the material are reflective and which parts aren't. So that's the material we have. Let's go ahead and rebuild that in Gamebryo. The first thing we're going to want to do, actually the very first thing is we're going to want to turn off the high quality renderer and go back to default, because the Gamebryo shader is not going to show up in the high quality renderer. So to create a Gamebryo material, we're just going to go ahead and click on NI multi-shader. That's the standard Gamebryo material. And if you go all the way up to the top, most of this should look pretty familiar. You've got your diffuse color, specular, ambient. Alpha sometimes comes in at 50%. It's no big deal. Just go ahead and turn that back off. So let's go ahead and select the mesh and apply this to it. Now, when you want to go ahead and apply your textures, as you look through here, you've got, as I mentioned, your material parameters, and then if you go down a little bit further, you have all of your textures in here. So we'll go ahead and apply a base map to this guy. And you'll notice as soon as that comes in that it's getting pretty severely downsampled by the time it shows up on the character. Let me graph this so I can select it easier. And the reason it's doing that, the Gamebryo material is going to do that just off the bat for performance reasons. If you want to turn that off, if you go up to the top portion here, Performance, click on Single Map Only, and it's going to go ahead and load in your full resolution texture. So let's go ahead and put the normal map on next. Again, just go down to your different textures here, and normal map is going to be towards the bottom, right here. So we'll go ahead and put this guy's normal map on him. One of the other cool things about that performance tab up at the top, once you switch that to single map only, so this is only going to display one texture at a time, and I'll show you if you want to see the final output how we can do that. But it'll display any texture you have applied, so if you want to see what your normal map looks like, you can change that to normal map and it'll pull that up. So to see this actually in the Gamebryo renderer, we can do a preview, but before we do that, since I have a normal map applied, we're going to go ahead and turn up his specular so we can actually see the effects of the normal map more easily. Also, we have this number here, shineness. This is going to be the equivalent of your Fong power or your specular power. It looks like we can apply a texture to it, but this does not actually take a texture input. That won't get exported, so you just get one number. So in this case, I know, even though I was applying a texture before, all of those values are around 65. So if you hit the fourth button in on your Gamebryo shelf, that'll go ahead and do a quick export and pull that up into Asset Viewer so we can take a look at it. So you can see we've got our normal map applied, we're getting specular highlights, we've got a base map, but if you look closely at the normals, you'll notice that something looks kind of off. Especially, we're getting a single highlight here as though that's rounded, but it should be, a narrow band since this is a cylinder. And also down here at the bottom of the coat, there's a real sharp seam running through the whole thing, but very noticeable there. So something's getting messed up on our normal map. And what's actually happening, there's a kind of difficult way to explain it, but basically, Maya reads its textures upside down, which means the green channel in our normal map is getting inverted. So there's two ways you can fix this. You can pull your normal map back into Photoshop, grab the green channel and invert it in there. Or if you go under the Geometry tab on your material, there's this Binormals and Tangents drop down. If you switch this over to Maya, we'll do another preview, it's going to correct this problem for you. So now, if you look on the back, on his little boiler stack here, we have a nice narrow band. We're not getting the same seams we were seeing before on the coat. So now this problem is only going to come up if you generated your normal maps in Maya to begin with. If you got your normal maps from ZBrush or Crazy Bump, you don't need to change your binormals and tangents. But if you baked them out of Maya, you will need to either make this change or invert the green channel, as I mentioned before. Alright, so moving on, next we're going to go ahead and apply a gloss map. Now this texture is actually two things at once. This is going to act as a specular color, but also later when we apply our environment map, this is going to act as a mask for that. So anything on your gloss map that's black is not going to get a specular highlight, but it's also not going to reflect. Anything that's white is going to get a pure white specular highlight, but it's also going to be 100% reflective. So if we do a quick export here to take a look at this, you'll notice that instead of those really sharp, bright, white specular highlights, now we get sort of this dull yellow on the brassy parts. We're still getting kind of a white highlight on the steel parts, and nothing else is really getting much of a specular highlight. So the next texture we want to apply to this is our glow map. That's right above gloss. Let me go ahead and apply this to him. And you'll remember that this was applied with a unique set of UVs. So if you look under all the settings for where we can apply a glow map, there is a UV set drop down, but it's grayed out right now. And the reason is we have the material selected directly. To access this, you actually need to select the geometry that has the material applied. Go all the way over to the right and select your material from there. And you'll notice as soon as we do that, this section has now become available. So we'll switch that over to glow, do a quick export to see what it looks like. And if we spin around to the back side now, you'll notice that these little vents here are glowing. So the last thing we need to do before we can call this guy done is to go ahead and reapply his environment map. Now in Maya, you're going to do that actually through a material channel. The way we do that in Gamebryo in Maya is actually through a light. So if you open up your Gamebryo shelf, it's about the 8th or 9th one in, there's this little shiny ball, Create Dynamic Texture Light. Click that, that'll go ahead and create a spotlight in your scene. And if you click on color all the way over here to the right, this is where you're actually going to apply your environment map. Now if you've got 6 different textures and you want to generate a cube map from that, you can go down to environment textures and do it through here. In this case, I have a version of this that's already been saved out as a cube map DDS file, so I'm just going to apply it directly without having to pull all those textures in separately. The last thing you need to do to get this set up properly is select the light, and then all the way over on the left on your transform node, you'll want to expand out this Gamebryo rollout, and you want to change texture type and coordinate type. Texture type we're going to change to environment map, and coordinate type we're going to use specular cube map. If you just had a flat image that you were going to use, you would change this to sphere map instead. So we'll go ahead and hit specular cube map, do a quick export, and you'll see when this guy loads up, now we get these nice reflections on all these brassy parts. The steel portions are also pretty reflective, and everything else is pretty dull. And again, that's using the same map that it's using to generate your specular highlights. So at this point, this guy is now ready to render inside of a Gamebryo game.